Gulchish Kunahoe Kayaaní Latgia Ye owe talk iti we ḳuhí one ganin slikatie de we ḳuhí siu audagan helwyd ysgwyd a diachsag y gwati gwell a qaqone aya kunachwe cacao jacket talk aya nacho a ye kuwat away slikatwe ye gi talk iti qaqutan ye awe tlaidihin Fairbanks ye ḳuhá Schoon klein a tu nachaya ya chogut. Ya achua tu ye waka. Talk ay kunach yad ya cacao jaketatsu. Talk iti. Kashach tua ushku. Kusachan awe e kat uagut. Ya kasi ye awe e tunditani ya yidat. A jrel de kat ye de we kuti. Ya kunach ayanach yin. Ayanach yi kuwat ayawe ya gi. Gwell ye ji kunnachawe isachan we jakut ḳu.oo just jadasa aya kakisachan ye awe ach ina kawanik yuch chatqa ach tu ye ya talk iti ḳu.oo ya yis talk sati qa aya ak qwaquch ye awe ach tu asagu ya Cleaqutan Chosatin we chuk ya akach ya se atikuk ach jiwu atut wutut le tiki at jadu sa du tuasagu ya dua ye awe du khantaya khokh ach tuasagu wita he chosatin wasa ye ge at wutut le tiki kuk ha ye awe ach tuasagu ach Kate a da ye jechwane Tellach toashku kudach ḳuhá a jowe ye awecho ach we at kaduch'áakʼ has du tuasagu wudut le tiki kuk tud ye awa awati which ach Kate da ye tunei ye jetunei ye awa ach tuasagu tsu aqa awe llachel ach jit wujachin ya achun kiyan shit kadach a klein awe qaq ach jit achas ausawu wasa ach tu ke we yis wudut le tiki kuka tutaya kakhwachak ishan khatqa we wudut le tiki kuk klehuch hechwasakuan just we garage at a yide ayachwa das achwasanich qunach away qunne kaulatsuch yaltekatwe atcha ishan ach tu nik tlach tua ushku ya ach hulitlihi awe ha atchai qa ach khuni ach ishas ani dach Bethel aayí qaq age ijiu ach jiu helge wasak kwati ya ach jit ach aisewu ya ke aqo atlai huj ye awe wan qanins we qallingit atchai juya an qajin wut tlegu Clay dihinoe shuwatin chosatin yak ye awe ach tuasagu celebration yakwahihi ya talk yakutan ya clea kun talk sakshoe ḳuhá yawahi shuwahi oe chosatini yak gwell cledushu gwell nasgadushu ḥu.oo chosatin gwell tlallingit yisaku ye awe ye kakqiji ha we shawat tlall dasa yuqaqwatan gwellingit yisakuqa nachawe yuqaqwatan in ye awe tlaus tla-aan shqaqwe de haswaquchan ya atqan وصدوساك أت وأدوغوتين أو وأتخشتي تيل أو يدوساك أتخشتي تيل أو هساو شيخن لأوس تلاقها شوتين وجين أتحس وقوخ تلاق حس وقوخ ويدي تلين أيكت شقاق ويدي هستي توسك هسقهونت أقا أوي لأوس تلاق أوي دو إنيو أخت تانن ويقا يا أختو يا كيلين جتي يختنجتين وجين يو أتش أتكن يا شوتين قا تلش داسخ أختو قيدخ ويقا قا يخوقا يخسقها كنشيش هادي قودي يكيخ ستيني يأوى يعطيخوي أخيت أوتلقين قنخوي تاك يخوتان يقودخ سوي هو قوكسا ḵu'oo تدوسا دو إيش تطلع آتلين يختنك جو يخاص أخ قنخ يوتين واسال كوتي كنتاكس سكشوي قواشو هيكن ḳuhán كقي ḳuh'ón celebration يوهيخ هو خاصتين شوتين ها يك ستيني أو قنا تشيش أدوسوي وأه قني يخسكو خاختي سكو قاق إجيو قاق جيو إجي دي كقوتي سقنن يا أوه يا أتخا قنخوي قاتواسكو وooch دقاقو قائلقا خسكوتسو يا تلاوس تليدهين أخجيت خيودتان يا ساك جي يككيتلاق قوالكيوي قوال أخ سني هؤلاء قووز أدان يا أوي كايك قويل تلين تين أو شاولهك تلخسكو كون صادو تواسكو يا أوي وان قنينز ويقها يا ترك كنا خويل تكت أكادي أو أشاولهك ساكتين أو تزديك كنا خوي شاولهك هقا زيسكتلي أخجيو زيسكتلي يخندق قوقوخ يا أوي هخندق وقوخ يا أخليل أوي خسيك ويقاو دو جيت خسئين ويتلاك قويل تين ويساك هقا جوا يا جس تلاك زيسك هجيت أوتي يا وقا جس يحتاجه جس تلاك قويل جادي خدني وهيخوسكو كنزا إتواسكو كنا خوي دتواسكو تلين يا جاكوت ḳu'oo تسو نتاسهيني aayí وتين يا أخليل خوني جاك يا وقا يا أوخو أخ أدات ساك تخو خايج قوة أخ تواسكو كخاقو يا أخليل أخجيو ودتيقي قوك تود يا أوي دوجي داوتي يا تلاك أقويل تلين تين ودتيق قوة قوك قناق تلتو إينا كاوني قوة أديدوس إيه أديدو خاية أخوا أوهان إتكاشنجت تلتكتوي ساك تلتا سا أخ ككي خاش تساكنين كهوك كادي قل إيل قل جاداسا إتواسكو أكخ ودوتزنيكي هخسكو وسادو ساك سبايسس قوا جا أكاتايا أقا أوي يا أوي ككي تسوك يا كتسوك ودين إيتس قنخوي يلتكت ويخاتا يا كختوخا يلتكت تلتاسا ويخ أخو daséix'án أكو تلوخا تلخ ووس أدات خوا يا أخليلكو تل شكاوة جا تل أشاكو جا أقاوي كون دس شوهيخن قلتلك دس شوهيخ قاقخدي وتقوخ يا أخليلك خندي أخليلك غيوز وصاوتي ويساك أخيوك يلتقت تاتين كوا وخاش يلتقت ويوسكي فلي ويساكتين يا أخليلك قنخوي أتوشو قدان يا أوي قوا تلوان قنينز تلو تسكو ها أتخاي دات جاكود ḳu'oo وان قنينز خاستين يا أوي ها أتخاي تواجسكو كاياقو يا لكوتا هستو آني كوكي خطوتين خاص خاص تاقاسا خاص خاص بافلو يدو ساكو أتويت للقاقينا يخوجين خاص أيا يخسكو أقا أوي الناسي أوي قنخوي هسي توسكو هسا وخاي يخت يوقا يخت يوسقاقا أخو أتش هسي توا أشكو الناسي وهرقا قنخوي هتوسكو يتواجسكو يا أخو كوكتي يتخاي أختوسكو كخا أخو يا تقوى وان قنينز وي قاس أوي هسا وجق يا قنيت تكتوي يك أدي يتخوي يهساوسني أتلوقو هس أخا تسياتا أدخ جانا يتا قنخوي هستو أقجاقي أدخوي هساوخا يا أو أخوني يا كيو ودي ويتا أوخار وخاص أوقو تس ياتا أدخ وان قنين ستواسكو تلو تيقوا آن كاين أوي مينيابوليس أجوي وي هندكي هتي دي وقوخ وي واسوس أوقو أوي أوتي just تل hours just hour خا ويدايخ كايري هنا ويدو إن يا وخي بس تلقاق إنخ roommate نيس وقت خاوستين قنخوي شه دو دايتي وأتلقو أو قنخوي أو خا كشتكي نخوي كخت كوتن وقت أوي دخوني هاو هش أوس كو وصا أتوني يا أوه هات خير قنا خياكي يا أختو يكي قني يا هين دي أيا كقص خود يا أخياغو قاقني هات خاي سق قاق قشي كشتا سخوس كو أداد أستيخ يا قش أخي ديكا قختشي يا قطان قلشي شاقيتي ساخي واسا يتوج خوا يت ख़uwá وجين يقتل أكل
نخيت ها أدخلي داد ख़uwáakʼ فنتشي شوي shkalneek أدايو تغتانيا داد كالتاك دناقخينخ قالتا يدو وساق أخليلك أخ إيش قالت أخ ख़udusteeyí دخ إيخ تاقوي خطل كالتاك ḳuhá COVID shukát كنخوي تاقيتت يايدت ها كوئيك يو توسني دناقخينخ هيا يدو وساق ويقوئيك ويقال كنخوي ها أتخاي هستو جيدي وتوتي يا أوه نايا دي Deikeenaa kioga yuduasak. Kunahoe hakiake. Katu disklu. Kunahoe hakiake. Achtuasigo gashta yu de kakwakuch. Just COVID-10 lidzi dat ḳuhá. Achtuiak ha aayí dat yutuchatan gunnatíis.
Ag écha de awa gunnatíis. Adisasu yuchaqwatan. Gwe douche o shot I tlud.
We got sákszs. Sorry. We got sákszs nayadi aadé hat nach Héen.
Awa chatsu. Yag UAS achtuasagu atkan hitia ḳuhí. Yag aqaqa'i gartullatu. Aadé yedaduneye wechat. Qat awe qanakhawe aqeyake. Llutaql awe achtuasagu. Tlain qat awe adach. Awe achsani teqoidichsati. Qanakhawe ashagug. We atqishi awe atuqan. Awe gwall atuqish. Helkden khasaku adan. Atqan ani. Wan qanins yuduasagu at. Tlaidqaqinach fish camp. Awe qalqawu dat yutukhwatan yayidat. Atqan ani awe. Qanakhawe wuke aya du inu qakhwatani. Awe khanakawani. Kehwaji. Wooch hakawdi ya uhan ya qakwedi qayuhan shukát ati. Awe uwaji. Khanakawani qeqa. We qanakh ati adakhawe has yawsadaqhawe we qakwedi. Llakat de awe ḳuhá. Haswulgas'an ya hashilko has. Aqa awe achtuasagu khasaku. Wasa wushkhuni khasati. Awe wuchiakhayati ayatsu. Keitli.
Het dat het kunach uchtsiqa we shukakawu chatlaq ye hasjiwane shuatin chatlaq da case we at hashti keitli tlagunsu uchan ḳuhá tlaqayachute just sagu hatuasigu tlaq yejuni ḳuhá we yanwáatxʼ we shukakawu has uwawat ayach awe kunach chagut awe
Qanakhawe qane ya handashani. Uhan su tlashagurta khwet. Hechwasakutsu wan qanins hayuqatangi dat yejatuneyen. Kat yagi awe yejatune. Ya yanwáatxʼ. Aadé! Ashqadake hiti de gartu da kakhawe kakwadal. wasachat with the hutchat. Ishi, hade. Ach inaya at hate kakisa koch the katjech. How? Kakach'áakʼ. Yeah, owe. Kausagu owe kanachoe has to in. Gulchish. Yeah, owe. Ya shuatin. Hashagun. Wansa haswulakudzen. Haswulakudzi. Ja, ach tu je hast du in juch auf. Aututla atken. Ja, lingitrinach kanach awe. Ja, ach kanach ach tu was goen. Has awestini. Keguchlitzin hayuch atangi. Kuntag sakshawe aya. Kaduch'áakʼ owe. Yanwáatxʼ owe hayuch atangi. Chatlakigi adatu tachtatansu. Wasa yigachtu dlaq. Wasa qachit gachtu ti. Wasa qaig gachtu latu. Ya hayuch atangi. On qanins ach weita aya tlashya gachi dlaq. Weita ayach tlashya gachi dlaq. Weita ayach tu oya tlashda sáxusti aya. An yigachtu dlaqi. Qatqo aya khwaji. Eqa. Yande ya yantu dlaq. Ja, has in aya yuqauqtatan. Ja, artlein yanwáatxʼ llingit at was ḳuhá. Qa achtu yake. Ha eat with the shi. Ḳuhá has to tuasagu. Kayaaní yati. Yalta kata yejene. Hekwasaku wanafsaya. Yak tlachlidzi awe. Aadé hasakaa'áakʼ. Ha yuqatangi. Lingitani. Kaach. Has sewahayi. Ja du auhan. Has like has aus hayi. Yawe. Tella sewahayi aus hayi. Ja du uhan ye suqoa. Kakach'áakʼ. Tula.aan tin qaqasakhan. Ye awechwa achwan qanins ḵuwá ye waqa. Kalkatin Kayaaní. Kalkatin Kayaaní. Ja nikdain yuqatangi. Ho achwan qanins. Klidzi ye awe. Qual kudachawe qatuwukliqe. Dutuasagu waetsu. Waetsu aya ikakosachun. Ajoe khatilachun. Tashayach uti ḳuwá. Ja achlilk. Achtla du ish. ḳu.oo du ish. Du awshatun. Chawasa hasakaa'áakʼ. Ituwu akaawak'etsi. Ituwu awshachuni. Ituwu akaawak'etsi. Klell achtua oshkulitzin has du jit iti. Ja jadasa awe adat. Qan ituye yiti. Kaltegenach awe yututan. Kaltegenach yuqatan. Aqa awe. Kallitzin aya ajich kakgiti. We nacht ati. Ye awe ach ina Kayaaní. Gajoe kaq'áakʼ. Wan qanins xuach. Kall ushke atawe ach yejene dat. Heshwasaka kwati ḳuwá. Qwasaku wooch in yuq atilla at yadayach. Adusatsu kakach'áakʼ. Hade kanaa'áakʼ. Ye awe ach tundatani yidat. Khas. Das way khas. Kacht. Yuq ewatan. Tesh dake hitte ḳuwá. Ach. Heshwus git ḳuwá. We dake hitti. Aayí yati yesu. Gulchish. Oh.
Ook.
Gat. Okay. Kliatke
wooch in you katuli at as adot. Achtawasi gu yi kakawuzi gusu we sáxs kanas age. Hingit ani agit gwal Deikeenaa ani kanas age. Tish khatin we sáxs ye khwaji.
Tán a Kayaaní ka had a gwai a Kayaaní konach. Daséix'án wooch has daséix'án, tlagoe wooch has daséix'án. Sáxs konach has to 2 hours ago. Sáaxs káaákʼ ich lingit ka Deikeenaa tsutskan has to anikok. Dakka gwal has hours ago adat we taltan taltan me do a sago at it. Gwal has hours ago adat hechasaka. Had was a teen we as. Gwal just a yanach kuk good a joy techosaku dat yachsatu teen.
Then chish. Achtawasi gu kwasatini we as. We you or sáxs.
Wasa do a sag we yaklein. Matnuska gwal malaspina. ḵu'oo klinge duchatangi yagu. Aadé hide gartu ḳuhá. Yan katu like yanachtu dlaqit we sáxs. Ḳudusteeyí adu ani saye has uwaji. Ya ginjichwan ani washtan kwan ani. Clegg klingit ani ka Deikeenaa ani. Ha chunkian. Gwal atlein sag ziskli adasa a 2 day kaduch'áakʼ awe wooch daséix'án sáxs kallachtin. Klingit yagu achtawasagu sati. Adusa ḳu.oo hajiyas ḳuhá. Leonardo DiCaprio ge. Gusuwa gug. No hajiyas.
Yekhwaji hatuasagu native village of Yak. Cake ferry ḵuwano ḵuhá
Ishan ch'áakʼ we t'áq'u yudo sak we yaklein. We tatsu has awahun. Aqa just wooch eid. Ishan. We ta'achtuasagu so. Yuqatangi yagu. Okay. Play the Héen, yeah. Kuchsaye chatwutian. Immersion awe wuti. A katchatse wok kuchsa. A dachoe we yak klein a yikti chatwutian. Chosatin. Ew to ish. Kaduch'áakʼ. Vida Davis, you do sagen. ḳu.oo inupiaq husatian. Ke ausi wat ḳuhá we lingit ḳu.oo. Qunachwe aushagu kayuqatangi. Ye awe ach du in kachwanik ya immersion ye chatwutian a toot. Lingit yuqatangi taak ye chatwutian. Ha! Ika kwalatu yidat kun kuchsa ḳuhá qunachwe shawlehek yuqatangi tin. Aadé aayí awlatu ye qunachwe wuke. Qunachwe tula.aan. Ja, hutsu wasa do sag. Guch klein gwal ye sagen. Lingit gleit qaqinach Clara Paratrovich. Hutsu Deikeenaa husati ḳeqa. Du tlá. ḳu.oo du tlá. Ach tlá. Du tlá. Du tlá. Du kiek husatian. Hutsu ḳuhá lingit ke has ausiwat. Aqa hutsu lingit qunachwe aushagug. Ich ki lingit. Ye awe ḳeqa awashgugan. Ye du inyuch auchtatanen su. Okay, ha.
wanganins wooch we sáxs nal hashadi like kind drift logs we sáxs nal hashadi Deikeenaa on we niche ka kunach we Deikeenaa kwan hastu tuasigu we sáxs.
ḵuhá we ḳu.oo gwell just niche yes yasna at daséix'án kunach we aadé we hasa outlaqain daséix'á we daséix'á we tlainacha ach káaní Andrew Byerly you do a sock ach jich out the time chai chai niche kake to gesagu ha wasa lach ach to wasagu uski ḵutí we kaduch'áakʼ on wooch shkalneek we xuwástí we chai ach tu ach cheat wujachin Gata we yis at kachshit gwalli waqshi shkalneek dati jagachtune idat gwalli we Táax'aa yata gwalli satin gutil qusacha qwanach sati we hechasaku adusa uski gwalli idat yendishan hechasaku gwall jayesu achaseuk yadu we hicht qanachti di hiti ishke hit gwalli we aayí wutien gutil gas we sááxs échi akach we hasakaus chayen shaltin kus yada gweil isani ketlt Táax'aa atlún aqwalún yat'íx wut'íx keqwat'íx ascha ausacha aguchsacha yanagut wugut guqagut yanagut uwagut guqagut yata chushugu yis at ḳuhá yata hechasagu kaduch'áakʼ uwagut gwalli yanach ach tuasagu kel wugut tlel til tleil hel chawasai tuasagu yaqai hel wugut aqaqhushi aqaqhuwashi aqaqhuqwashi aqaqhuwashi akaqhuwashi aadé ausatin aguchsatin anasquain ausaku aguchsaku ashachisht ashawachich ashaqquachich naskit wudzagit yeqquaskit chayakagenki chaqut at yata qaqshachit gwalli ch'u'o yatakuskiti anastain ausata aguchsata anayan anayen Vechwaji ana Héen. Awaya. Kayaaní. Ya Deikeenaa. Achawe yanadi. You do a sock. Achawe gwash ana yan. Exception now ḵutzati gwash giwe. Yanadi you do a sock yata. A tutwan qanins ḵuhá. Gwash tsitsa hit. Gwash naat. Yanadi ka yanayi. Deikeenaa shukát. ḳuhá yisat xollayech yag. Tula.aan. Echwasaku. Ya shkun klein. Yug away. Tula.aan. Qanachwe ḳuhá kawshahit. ḳutáo hastu at yahay. UAS ḳuhá aayí tsu ha aayí. Dana hastu jit watuati. Ya aya yejachane. Ya analkats. Auslakoots. Agurlakoots. Oh, gwalliata tsu gwallisaku. Just yayidat. Tlaltziagan, like, just tula.aan. Yatatsu, xa. Wait, like, just tula.aan. Gwal chaguta, yewuti, yekwati, tula.aan chaguti uchatang.
I think it's kind of hard to tell that that's a school. It's just, at first I thought you were saying like it was a piano or something. Like,
So kaduch'áakʼ.
but I do get the location idea. That's a good idea.
A katwajachin. A kaduch'áakʼ. Ya awa. Ya anvil ḵutí. Gwallasai qasil in Deikeenaa. Yata yisat. Awashat. Kayaaní. Echwasaku. Yata awashat. Adaak. Shoot awdaak. Oops. Shude aguch'áakʼ. One qanins. Oh, shoot adaak. A katchatsu. Wait, that's it. Shoot. Asa atwin. Adaak. Shoot awdaak. Shude aguch'áakʼ. A kadeya anachut. A cut awachut. A kaduch'áakʼ. What she said, Tinsa? Aadé, cut, aadé. Ash'uch, aush'uch, kaduch'áakʼ. Astacht, like astacht. Ausatach, kaduch'áakʼ. Shkalneek gawu. Xasaku gwal adat yejutunean. Yudaqqa aya aqeha wutir. Takaya wutir. Ḥudusteeyí. Watiqi sayucha awujascha antqini. Qusacha qwan qudzati wegao. Kaynachqa awalun. Kashliqhugud. Du kik du iqaquwashi. Hu ayatsu kashliqhugud. Shliqhugud aya yakiki anch aya nasqach aya du hunchuhasqaya qunashin. Aya daq yashaq aya ausatini qa aya. Chiklay ayu ausakuqasaqa qwanxsati. Ashkhandi yanagut. Ashshawachich awe qusacha qwanch awe shawachich. Wudzigid. Adach ausatawa yidak tlekweil 2 day. Kle awayadu hiti atla ayede. We yadak ḳuhá awe we yana tuwu. Awe ḳuhá awe atudach kewugudi. Ashkoots yatirkisani. Atudake gudoe du jit wujachin. Wakusaka kwan kusi. Aayí ḳuhán ganach a. Chuta ganach a yuch yanas ni teen awa ashawa hitch. Shoot at the ark a cutawa hut. Waskits ekehsane wakusaka kwan ketlike. Aya chal adayan kachtu de shitri awa ausha kusaka kwan ketli awa ausha Kayaaní wune awa Táax'aa ḥusatí. A joy Táax'aa sáάξ. Ye awa wuti. Ye aya yende shakwataan. Ya ita telwasaka kwati tletxaqina xujinu qatulaki. Chadasa dat. Qawe yashkalneek dat. Ye jagachtune. Qadawusake ijiwu.
daséix'án.
Chadasa dat. Yashte katayu qatangi yakhana.
Ḳudusteeyí ḳanawus uyaga.
Qadawus tletxaqina a question.
Oh.
Qadawuske ijiwu. Any questions? Got any questions?
A qatqatsewa wasa duwasak awl'u'uj.
Awla'uj. Yata. Awla'uj. Gwall ia'ach. Sigu Kayaaní. Sigu Kayaaní. Itcha. Ya in de shan. Susina aya ak. Tek kakilla'uj. Ah.
That's huge.
Yeah. Okay.
I was wondering if the introductory pictures are in the same order that they are used in the story.
In the first version of the story, yes. I'll have to double check because I started with the beginner version, and this is this one's actually the intermediate version. Then we work up to the advanced version. We just keep add more. And I think they are still in the same order. And then there's a couple of words that aren't represented here.
Yeah.
But they should be. So you basically, you have the cannibal, the club, the bag, the rope, the ashes, and the mosquito. So that's all that's sequenced to the story. When I guess you could probably go, it was difficult when hunting. This is related to the cannibal. And so I guess maybe this needs to move down here. So then you got walking, coming down from the hill, and then coming down and not coming down. Looking for, sees it, knows it's the eater of people. Now we're getting in order. It hits him over the head. He falls down. I'll give you all the answers. It's okay. Picks him up as an unconscious being. Packs him. It's situated. The school. I'm just kidding. Breaks a rope. A heavy thing falls. We'll get to that one. Grabs, and this one is actually I substituted this. So this verb is in here, and we'll get to it today. But for the beginner version, I switched it to this verb. So instead of using a metaphor, so this is how some of the sort of switching is going to happen, I think, is to simplify things, you're just going to say like grabbed it instead of what we're going to see here. Builds a fire, drags it onto it, blows the ashes,
And the mosquitoes.
fighting people. So, and there are some like ḵudusteeyí is, I don't know, what, like some being born. That's just kind of weird, but and then siti. So a lot of the to be verbs, I just leave them out because I'm like, well, we'll just have to learn those, you know. But the visual stuff, like the ones you can really visualize, is what I was hoping to get across here.
Yeah, okay. Leyek ugut aya yakiki'a. So, one more. One more.
I guess we're all the way down because we did these ones, I think.
Yeah, there's the one.
So I guess starting with this first part. So let's see. I think we did these ones like so didn't come back. The younger brother was looking for him, right? And then he also didn't come back. So let's get down to there. And that gets us to here. There is a really interesting pattern. This is not the first, and you'll see it a couple times in this story. Don't fully understand how it works. But you'd say there's another version in, if you go look in that story with the two little kids who learned how to fish from their grandparents, I did with Marge and George. They said when he got to shore, he wanted his grandson to go fishing with him. So the first part would be when he got to shore. Ḵuhá. That's just how those motion verbs work sometimes. So you're going to see in here, if you see like kaduch'áakʼ, when he, you know, I think it was atunach kaduch'áakʼ, when he got out of there, and in this case, sheq ugut aya, when he didn't come back. So it is doing a when thing. I don't exactly understand how, but I know that's what it's doing. And so, but you can adapt this now to other things. Neshkut-awa, when they came inside, something, you know, they took off their jacket or something. So in this case, we got when he didn't come back. Then we go to yakiki'a. And what is that one?
Little brother.
Yeah, the youngest one. Aya. Any thoughts on that one?
He's going along crying.
Yeah. And when you have this is a S plus D classifier. And this is usually, like there's two types of crying, right? So we usually hear these, I think, in the imperfective or sometimes in the perfective. So you'd say, awaqach, they cried. And so that kind of crying is usually like tears and, you know, sadness. But when you get the S classifier, though, it's a little different. And sometimes you've got the ka on there. But then when you have the S classifier, you're crying or asking for something. So this would be like the raven when he's a kid and wants the boxes, or, you know, some kid who wants chocolate milk, or who wants, you know, something, just crying for it. And then I don't think you see it as much, but there are some verbs where when you can put them in the progressive imperfective, and it means to be going along doing that thing. So he's going along crying for them. So it adds motion to the action. And there's a few verbs that do that. Some of them they might have just an imperfective built in. But like yanwáatxʼ is like they're walking along, they're going along farting, right? Like, so they had to move some things around so they could make some room or whatever, right? So in this case, going along crying, then we get
Would it be like going along crying like out loud, you know what I mean? Versus silently with tears coming down?
Yeah, that's a good question. So usually you'd have it as kausagach. So that's how you'd usually hear that one. And so I don't know, that's making someone cry. What is, oh, it would be kadakach. So kadakach would be real loud, like like, and sometimes that's, sometimes really intense stuff, and or a big owie or some, and so that's something where it involves the volume,
Uh, thank
fear,
you.
pain, great pain. So it's really neat to also look at like just those little subtle switches, just to cry for something, then to cry out. The other day I came in, my dog like walked right in front of me, and I was like carrying groceries, and I went to kick my shoes off, and I kicked didn't mean to kick the dog. I felt bad.
Sean.
Don't kick my dog. But, I was just trying to get you gotta get your shoes off. Yeah, like, because I did the thing where like I got 10 bags of groceries, I'll carry them all. Okay, so you also have two imperfectives in a row, right? So this gives it like this super immediacy, like when they didn't come back. So this is the second time it happened too, which is why it's all adding up. The younger ones, he's just crying for them as he's going along looking for them.
Wait, what is it? The immediacy?
Because they're both in progressive imperfectives. So the yana, that always puts it into this sense of happening right now. And especially because you've got like he's going along crying as he's looking for them. So for me, that's what sort of adds it up, because you could say he was, or So Tlingit does this stuff where all languages I think probably do this. You play around with time a little bit to just show like what the really important parts of the story, to focus on things, to shift scenes. Okay. Oh.
A question. So that clause, so there's no relative marker, which you've told us about. So is it the aayí that's maybe turning it into the clause, or?
I think because I think I always hear it with an aayí or an awe. And it's always, there's no classifier in this, well, it's always a zero. It's just a straight zero. But this one you do get the because usually I hear this as goot. So I could say, you'll see it a couple times in the story. So you might say dak ǩu.oo when it came out. And what it might be doing, because it has to do with motion, is really tying these things together. Like when it came out of the woods, I shot it. And and it's sort of like, I think you could also say it, you could say dakuguti ḳu'ún. And that's like it came out of the woods and I shot it, right? Or when. But maybe this ties it a little bit closer. Like as soon as that thing happened, this other thing happened. But I'd have to look into it. There's a whole bunch of this stuff where I'm like, I'm seeing it. I don't know what it is, but I know that I'm seeing it. Like, I think because the fishing story was fun because we did it all in, well, we were speaking English and Tlingit, but we're like, well, let's just write our own story. And so in that case, we said when they got to camp, or when something, ḵuhá, and that's how he said it. ḵuhá, their grandparent wanted the one to go with them.
Geez.
So yeah, I'd say keep your eye out for it. And just, it seems to be a pretty straightforward thing. So you just have ḳuhá, or in this case, gut, and ḳuhá.
Can you explain that last portion of that sentence? Do hu haskaya kunashin,
Mhm.
like haska. I don't get that. I'm not. Do hunku, he's looking for his brother. Do hu has, his brothers.
Yes. So usually
Oh,
when we deal with pronouns, you can't put a suffix on a pronoun. So you usually get has do iqa, do iqa, ach iqa. But and same with like you do this for like has do aayí, it's their thing. Has do yuchitangi, their language. But when I first started noticing this pattern is once you pluralize, I think it's when you pluralize a kinship term, it
ah,
just becomes a noun. So the first time I started noticing this, I used to say hashishko has du yuchitangi. And an elder said, no, you could just say hashishko has yuchitangi. I was like, oh, I
ah,
don't put the du in there.
hmm,
And so you can just, and so that's why it looks unusual. It was because you have du hunchu has
ah.
qa yakunashin. So you can put, I think, suffixes, but I don't like to have like day or dach. Like I'd have to sort of test that out. Or I think you
Why,
could say du hunchu hasji dach aya. It's
why
from
is
your
why
brother.
is that ga attached to the hus? To me, the hus has more to do with the hunk.
Well, when you have this kuashi verb, the
What?
qa marks what you're looking for. So you can substitute any noun. Like you say,
Okay.
so when we learn it as basically a noun, we were seeing it as aqa kushi. They're looking for it.
Oh,
And that's that third person, just like a wat,
okay.
a jinn, aqa. But they smash together in this case. So you could say haketliqaqtuwashi. We were looking for our dog, right? And so you can change that to any. So when you look it up in a theme, it'll say en qa
Okay.
subject she.
So then we're at
So the huncho has
hus.
they're the noun.
I don't like how it's separated, but I don't get to decide.
What's separated? What's separated?
I guess I think either who hus and then there should be a space with ga. It's hard for me to understand that do who hus is the whole substituting for that's the noun.
But this is a suffix, and so it must go on to a noun.
Okay.
And in this case, it goes on to e, which is the empty base, because it cannot go on to a pronoun.
Mhm.
But this is, and a lot of kinship terms they get treated kind of like this. You couldn't say ach ish qa. I don't think.
Mm,
I think you would say ach ish du iqa. You would throw the
mm,
d and then the e on there, which is probably why it looks a little unusual. But
mhm.
once you've got hus, the
Okay.
chan but I don't know if that's the case every time either. It's
Like
another of these fringe knowledge things, which are fun once we start stepping up into the bigger versions, you know. This is one where I would simplify it for the earlier version.
well, it's something I'd never seen before. Not that I'm that experienced, but thank you.
Yeah, so yeah, you could say, and same with you could say, "Ach, katiqa yiqa I'm looking for my keys.
Hmm.
Ach, katiqa yiqa. So it goes right onto the noun.
Machine.
Yeah, I think we had a little bit of a light bulb go off when we were working on this together as a group, because there's so many different subjects and objects in the sentence, and you had to know who's searching, for whom they're searching, who's crying. I think we kind of had this moment where we were like, do huncho hus goes together, and ga kunashin. So we were kind of like, oh, they're looking for the older brothers, but we had to sort of retrain our eyes to see that.
And when you get to this point in the story, the young boy emerges as the main character. So assume every verb will be about him unless it specifies otherwise.
Gunashchish.
Aya daaq, ya shaaq, aaq, aya auxitini, qa, aya. What do we got here?
Dock is like back out into the open.
Other way.
Oh, in the forest interior.
Mhm. So inland.
Is between mountains. Yakwa.
Yes. Yeah. Aq. There, and so a aq could be like in between things, and then shaqaq is the saddle of two mountains,
Mountains.
basically, or a mountain with like two peaks.
But it's not valley, correct?
Correct. That would be sha'nach.
Shanak.
So so this part locates us in a place to get us to what's happening. And I would probably say there's not a true verb in this sentence.